Good evening, and glad to have you here at the Mariner Sands Chapel for evening speakers night. Tonight we have a very special guest, our Board of Commissioners Chair Sarah Hurd, and David Smith is going to introduce her in just a second. But I want to welcome you here. This is one of the last that we'll have. We'll have one more, right, Lee? One more speakers night coming up, and he'll let us know about that a little later on. We're going to be here for a little while, just in case if you're new. I want to say a special welcome for some of our new people that are here. If you've been here less than 6 months, would you just raise your hand? If you've been here less than 6 months. Okay, so make sure that all of us share our DNA of joy with them, because this is a great place to live and a great place to stay, and we want you to stay as long as you can, okay? So thanks so much for being here, everyone. If you are new and you need to get outside, use our facilities, they're just down the hall to the right. Go through that back door or go out this door and go down the hall, first and second door on the right. Also, let's see. Well, I'm not going to waste a lot of time. I want to make sure that whoever you're sitting down the row from, just take a look. Everybody look to your right and then look to your left, okay? And if you don't know the people next to you, make sure you, at some point tonight, make sure you say hello and just say, it's good to have you. You know, they say there's a statistic that 30% of people are very good looking. And there's another statistic that says that 30% of the people are very intelligent. So when you look to your right and you look to your left, and it's not them, oh, terrific. Well, Speakers Night is something that we do here at the chapel as a way of creating an outreach for everybody here at Mariner Sands of topics of interest. And so we thought one of the topics of interest is all the stuff that's going on in Martin County. And so what a special opportunity to have a time with one of our commissioners, and we're glad to have her. So at this time, I'm going to introduce to you Mr. David Smith. Colonel David Smith is a retired Army officer, a lawyer, as well as an engineer, and he happens to be serving at the chapel as our vice president of our board of trustees. And he and Diane are just terrific people. They live over on Burning Tree. When you see them outside, you can say, hey, David, I know you. I saw you the other night. And so here's David, and he's going to introduce our guests. Thank you.
Thank you. We are very privileged tonight to have Commissioner Sarah Hurd. She is currently the chairman of the Martin County Board of Commissioners. So if anybody knows what's going on, she certainly does. She's a graduate of Texas A&M. She's married to Jeffrey Hurd, who's a former Navy pilot and retired from Delta Airlines. She was commissioner, she was chair of the Board of County Commissioners between 2012 and 2014. She's a member of the Airport Noise Committee, the Children's Service Council, the Law Library Committee, the Palomar Water Control District, and Canvassing Board. She's been very active otherwise in other organizations. She's active in the Women's Club of Stewart, the Martin County Conservancy Alliance, the Garden Club of Stewart, and the League of Women Voters. She's been focused on protecting taxpayers and water resources. So if you'd please give a warm welcome to Commissioner Sarah Hurd.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting me here tonight. I'm naive, which I think is a valuable quality for a public servant to have. Politics and politicians these days are so corrupt and cringeworthy and self-serving. It makes me yearn for the good old days, when politics and politicians were noble and honest and full of goodwill and integrity. when personal egos and vanity and bald ambition weren't politicians' main sources of motivation and advancement. So let's turn back the clock in South Florida. Henry Flagler connected Jacksonville to Miami with the Florida East Coast Railroad in the 1880s and 1890s. World War I caused wealthy Americans to cease visits to Europe, so millionaires began flooding South Florida, especially Palm Beach and Miami, building mansions and luxury hotels. In the Roaring 20s, Middle and Southern Palm Beach County were exploding with wealth and opportunity. In early 1925, Palm City and Stewart and Salerno were part of ritzy Palm Beach County. My husband and I first bought property in Sewell's Point, South Sewell's Point on the Indian River Drive in '87, and our old plat showed Palm Beach County line, ran right through our lot. Rio and Jensen Beach were part of St. Lucie County. Palm Beach County commissioners had absolutely no interest in promoting Stewart, which was a one-horse town with fewer than 1,000 residents. The only industry was the pineapple industry. There was some fishing. The commissioner representing the northern part of Palm Beach County was an ineffective one-term commissioner. In 1925, John Martin, thank you, sorry, Gary. Thanks. In 1925, John Martin became governor of Florida. He was a flashy salesman from Jacksonville. About this time, a group of outsiders moved here and began agitating, persuading Stewart to grow. They were going to transform Stewart into the largest seaport south of Savannah. They just needed help from the federal government to blast out the reef in front of the inlet. At around the same time, a Florida House member, who was the important chair of Florida House's County Organization Committee, was trying to split St. Lucie County into two to make Indian River County. Business leaders here began moving toward county organization. This may sound familiar. Jack, this will sound familiar to you. They hired the most politically connected lawyer in Florida. He represented developers and utilities companies throughout the state. He thought that their case was hopeless and he refused to take it, but he offered them excellent advice. Florida had a brand new brash governor, appeal to his ego and vanity, name the county after him, and maybe he would become their champion. Advocates convinced their reluctant state House representative to sponsor a bill in Tallahassee making Martin County a new county. St. Lucie County was livid because half of their county was being stolen for Indian River County and the southern half was being stolen for Martin County. The wild card in Tallahassee was Governor Martin. He wanted his named county enough to do some arm twisting. He said he would only sign off on Indian River County if Martin County was approved at the same time, and it worked. The referendum on the creation of Martin County took place on August 5th. The final vote was 345 people for, 5 against. The timing of Martin County's creation was significant. Only one more county was created after Martin County, and it was Gilchrist, which was later in 1925. Right away, there were very many projects to approve. Picture City was a movie mogul's megalopolis that would have required 4 new train stations within its limits. Railroad magnate Davis Warfield wanted to turn Indiantown into a metropolis. In 1926, a horrendous hurricane totaled Coral Gables and Miami. It was terrible publicity for the entire state. All the grandiose plans for Stewart lingered, then failed as investors lost their properties to foreclosures and taxes. The stock market crash of 1929 sealed their doom. By 1935, Of the 165 enthusiastic Chamber of Commerce members in Stewart in 1925, a mere 48 remained. The biggest project that has influenced Martin County's character is 101 years old, the C-44 Canal, which unnaturally and unfortunately links the South Fork of the St. Lucie Estuary to Lake Okeechobee. The canal was built between 1916 and 1924 to divert floodwaters from Lake Okeechobee. Back in 1916, Lake Okeechobee didn't have a dike or a dam. In the wet season, excess water overflowed the southern shore of the lake and very, very slowly, over 6 to 8 months, would make its way down to Everglades National Park and to Biscayne Bay. Decision makers back then deemed this swampy ecosystem harmful and took action instead to shunt water quickly to the east, to the St. Lucie Estuary, and to the west, to the Caloosahatchee. The C-44 Canal was a source of contention here from the very beginning. Storms from 1925 to 1930 overwhelmed the canal, and the federal government took over Lake Okeechobee and the canal in 1930. Minutes from the December 15th, 1930 Board of County Commissioner meeting contain an adopted resolution to the trustees of the Internal Improvement Fund to have the St. Lucie Canal locks closed. The adopted resolution instructs the trustees to close the gates at the lake end of the St. Lucie Canal until April 15th, 1931, for the reason that the constant discharge of a large volume of dirty fresh water into the St. Lucie River has killed all the shellfish, driven all the saltwater fish from the river, filled the river with hyacinths, and so polluted the St. Lucie River as to completely take away its attractive features and ruin its commercial value to the community. That was December 15th, 1930. In 1953, the people of Martin County said enough is enough and formed the St. Lucie Indian River Restoration League. In the 1990s, the St. Lucie River Initiative and the Rivers Coalition took up the flag to fight the discharges from Lake Okeechobee. In 1998, after an unusually long period of continual discharges from Lake Okeechobee, the St. Lucie River was full of lesion fish and numerous algae blooms. Martin County residents transitioned very quickly from river advocates to river warriors. Standing room only meetings at the Blake Library were held with people queuing in lines for hours, awaiting their turn at the microphone so that they could scream blame to the Army Corps of Engineer colonels in attendance. Tens of thousands of people gathered at the locks in many protests to rally for the rivers. I know this because I was there at every opportunity. In 2000, Congress authorized passage of the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, CERP. In 2005, the Army Corps authorized the Indian River Lagoon South Plan. That's our portion of CERP. Indian River Lagoon South was one of the very first CERP projects ever authorized. In 2007, Congress authorized Indian River Lagoon South, which made it eligible for funding. In 2007, the total cost of Indian River Lagoon South was estimated at $1.8 billion. Its price has doubtless more than doubled since then. Sure? Sorry, I meant to start that earlier. Indian River Lagoon South has made remarkable progress and has garnered hundreds of millions of dollars in state and federal funding. 3 of its main projects, large man-made reservoirs with much larger stormwater treatment areas, are either constructed or underway with full funding. The largest of the 3, the C-44, contains 4,460 acres of reservoir and 7,800 acres of marshy stormwater treatment areas, pulling dirty water from the C-44 canal and cleaning it before releasing the treated water back into the C-44 canal. Just to give you some perspective, the reservoir, which is 4,460 acres, is 2 miles by 3 miles. It's large. Indian River Lagoon South has 2 unique components not contained in any other SERP projects. It authorizes acquisition and restoration of 90,000 acres of natural lands. One of the foundations of Everglades restoration is to restore the native habitats to sustain the flocks of wading birds that once filled the Everglades. With overdevelopment in South Florida, the habitat is so fragmented and so scarce that even if you could find it, which you couldn't, we couldn't afford to buy it. But in Martin County, we have required a strong urban service boundary, which has kept our rural lands intact, and prices for rural and natural lands relatively low, so we can recreate these healthy habitats here. And the beauty of birds is that they can fly to their newly restored healthy habitats right here in Martin County. Another component after the above ground projects are completed in IRL South is the removal of 9 million cubic yards of filthy muck from the floors of the Indian River Lagoon and the St. Lucie Estuary. The Indian River Lagoon is the most biodiverse estuary in North America, the most important nursery grounds for fish all along the eastern seaboard. Martin Countians have shown a keen interest in protecting and sustaining our natural environment for our entire history. That includes managing development. Our first comprehensive growth management plan, our COMP plan, was approved in 1982, creating the legally binding policies that have shaped our growth. Among those pillars are the 4-story height limit, the strong urban service boundary, no impacts to wetlands, and conservation of our rural lands. Generally, all land that's outside our urban service boundary is land used and zoned agriculture, and the minimum lot size upon which you can build one house is 20 acres. That's the minimum lot size. You've heard me speak strongly about the importance of our urban service boundary. No other county in Florida has so effectively and wisely used this regulation to preserve critical resources and to prevent urban sprawl. Urban services like roads and schools and fire protection and police protection and potable water and sewer are very expensive to provide in a compact geographic area like an urban service boundary. If you allow urban or suburban uses outside that boundary, those urban services become prohibitively expensive, and government cannot possibly plan where urban services need to be provided in the future. That's why we have traditionally only allowed urban services to be provided inside the urban service boundary. You've probably noticed how far west I-95 curves in Martin County. If you've been here 38 years, you will also recall that Martin County was the last link in I-95's South Florida construction. That bulge was deliberate. County commissioners like Maggie Herchala knew that roads are the single most defining shaper of where development occurs. The overdevelopment in South Florida showed that interstate interchanges and exits are always the catalyst for urban sprawl. So they aligned I-95 way out west in the hopes that it would deter and defer urban sprawl. And so far, it has worked. Martin County has strongly defended the regulations of our comp plan, which sometimes takes us to court. In the early 1990s, a developer proposed amending our comp plan in section 28, which was land used and zoned agricultural. It's wholly outside our urban service boundary. Section 28 is located in the headwaters of the Loxahatchee River, bordered by Jonathan Dickinson State Park. The developer wanted to put 810 houses, a golf course, a golf clubhouse, and 50,000 square feet of commercial on 638 acres. The allowable land use at that time would have allowed 31 houses and no commercial. The majority board of county commissioners denied the request. The developer sued the county. The suit wound its way through the lower courts, and in 1994, the 4th District Court of Appeals affirmed the court's denial of the amendment. In 1998, a developer applied to Martin County to build 5 apartment buildings in Pinecrest Lakes in Jensen Beach. The majority board of county commissioners voted to approve the request. A Martin County resident sued the county over its approval, arguing that the application violated the compatibility tiering requirements of the comp plan. Even though he's being sued, the developer built 5 buildings. The plaintiff argued that where incompatible dwelling types met, in this case, multifamily apartment buildings met single-family homes, the developer was required to provide, in the first tier of the denser dwelling type, a buffer the same size as the less dense dwelling type. So, for example, if the single-family lots were 100 feet by 100 feet, the apartment buildings would have to be 100 feet away from the single home lot lines, which they were not. In 2002, the 4th District Court of Appeals ruled for the plaintiff. The developer had to tear down 5 apartment buildings. No one is trying to punish developers, but our comp plan is our legally binding framework, and we need to have confidence so that we can rely upon its requirements. It is indeed our plan for the future. We have consistently and successfully battled urban sprawl and incompatibility, protecting our agricultural lands, keeping our taxes low, and predictably planned and prepared for future growth inside and outside the urban service boundary until recently. And can we pause and go on to these next slides? These are just some of the slides of discharges from Lake Okeechobee to show the importance of completing Indian River Lagoon South and buying natural lands, and also of demucking the river when these projects are finished. That's going out the inlet. It's also the inlet. The water's not supposed to be that color. It's supposed to be blue. Okay. So this is a map of Martin County, and the urban service boundary that I'm talking about is depicted here. It's pink. And the lavender that's adjacent to it is the secondary urban service boundary. So until very, very recently, all development that was approved in Martin County was approved in the pink area. And everything that's not pink or lavender had an agricultural land use, still has an agricultural land use. It means you have to have 20 acres in order to put one house in. Next, okay. The first change to that happened in 2010. And you see Ag Tech right there? It's 1,735 acres. It was land used and zoned agriculture. At the time, the King Ranch owned it, and I'm sure that the King Ranch wanted a a land use that would make it more sellable. It was 2010, so the majority board granted them a change. It was a new future land use designation. We called it Ag Tech. Pretty much any commercial or industrial use could be used on that. Martin County wisely refused to extend water and sewer to the site. So apparently the King Ranch people brokered a deal with Port St. Lucie to extend water and sewer from Port St. Lucie to the project. It's never been developed in the last 15 years, which tells me that we shouldn't have changed the land use in the first place. We did an analysis in 2023 of our available industrial and commercial land uses and found that the area of vacant industrial lands in Martin County was more than twice that of our developed industrial lands. We also created what we call a freestanding urban service boundary around the parcel. The next urban service boundary buster is Newfield. You see that up in the top of the slide? It was approved by the Board of County Commission majority in December of 2020. It's 3,400 acres upon which will be built 4,200 homes, 10,000 new residents, 290,000 square feet of commercial, and 2 million square feet of industrial. This was all ag before the approval was given. It also, this time our utilities department caved and said that they would extend for the first time water and sewer to the project. Newfield was a gift to a gentleman who lives part-time in Sewell's Point named Knight Kiplinger. It wasn't the first gift that we've given to Knight Kiplinger. In about 2005, the majority board voted to approve Martin County taxpayers paying to create and pave a road through his property. We called it the Western Corridor back then. Between the creation of this new road and now, the only thing that's been built there is an isolated elementary school, presumably affirming the road's civic and public purpose. Mr. Kiplinger touted the compact nature of his development. He said that it only occupied 30% of the property, and that's true. It's also true that it's far cheaper for a developer to develop on 30% of their property rather than 100% of their property. It's also true that over half of this property is wetlands, and we don't allow any impacts to wetlands, and that's including building homes on them. 2021 really marked the end of careful planning and protecting our rural lands from urban sprawl. First, the Board of County Commission majority approved the comp plan amendment that changed this, let's see, right here, KC Waterside, from ag to industrial. They dedicated it a freestanding urban service boundary and also said that they would extend water and sewer to that project. The land would house 1,050,000 square feet of warehouses. A lot of them are already constructed on that property. Next, the board majority approved the Rural Lifestyle Amendment in order to usher in the Discovery Atlantic Fields project, which is right there. That's Bridge Road, I-95, Discovery. At first, in order to qualify for rural lifestyle, you needed 1,000 acres of agricultural land. Under the existing land use, on 1,000 acres, you could put 50 houses plus 50 guest houses on a minimum 20-acre lot. Under rural lifestyle, 200 homes plus 200 guest houses could be built, and there's no minimum lot size any longer. 54 guest cottages could also be built, And the golf cottages don't count toward maximum allowable density. And the golf cottages are limited to 6 bedrooms each. Water and sewer can be extended to the development. So you see where that is. You see with all the ag that it's leapfrogged over. This is what's allowable. Golf courses, clubhouses, spas, restaurants, pool clubs, stores, maintenance facilities, dormitories can be built in this development. Discovery has since been amended to include 317 home sites and 54 guest cottages that don't count. In short order, Rolling Sands and 3 lakes were approved. There's 3 lakes, let's see, there, and there's Rolling Sands. That's Canner Highway. So there's 3 lakes is this one right here. 3 lakes, or apogee, includes 1,216 acres. Facilities include 2 18-hole golf courses, 2 9-hole golf courses, 54 golf cottages, 7,000 square feet each, and they don't count toward maximum densities, a 70-bed dormitory, a 55,000 square foot maintenance facility, 2 clubhouses of 63,000 square foot total, a pool and spa club, 15,000 square feet, a river club, 12,000 square feet, tennis club, performance center, 12,500 square feet, tennis and pickleball courts, and a bridge over Canner Highway connecting the 2 sides. Colusa Creek, which is here, was the next golf resort the board majority approved. Colusa really expanded rural lifestyle. It consists of 3,900 acres. No longer does the land have to be adjacent to the urban service boundary. It's now expanded to any land within 6,000 feet of the urban service boundary or any of the freestanding urban service boundaries, and there are 4 of them. Furthermore, no lands have to be under a conservation easement, and now guest cottages are now up to 12 bedrooms each. 175 houses have been approved at Colusa. Uses there include golf courses, golf cottages, pro shops, administration offices, club and range houses, event facilities, marinas, restaurants, driving ranges, spa and racket clubs, general stores, gym and recreational facilities, and helipads, and a tunnel underneath Canner Highway connecting the 2 sides. I'm really concerned about their location and also the viability of these new ultra luxurious golf resorts in our midst. I've been to 3 lakes, and the golf courses are just extravagant. They're extraordinary. They're sculpted. They're art-like. The buildings are mammoth. They're really, really high-end. They're really going to require armies of laborers maintaining the landscaping, serving as staff inside all of these different clubs. One of the representatives for Atlantic Ridge today said that Atlantic Ridge, when they're fully operational, will have 450 full-time employees. It's going to be really, really expensive to keep these facilities maintained to the exacting standards of their members. And it's also unlike the resorts that they may belong to in Wisconsin or Montana or Long Island that close on November 1 and don't reopen until June 1. So you're not paying for the maintenance during those months. They're pretty much shuttered up. These are going to have to be in tip-top shape 365 days a year, even though they, in all likelihood, will not be used at all from June 1 to November 1. But they're going to have to pay for the maintenance of them, and it's going to get really, really, really expensive, and that's our growing season too. And I'm fearful that one of the easy solutions that they'll look for is we need more members to pay our bills, and that means more and more and more houses. Another concern I have, in September, the old board majority voted to change the land use on 167 acres here, right there, Martin Commerce, right there. They voted to change the ag, it went from ag and ag ranchette to industrial, even though we don't need any industrial. They appointed it a freestanding urban service boundary. They're allowing water, municipal water and sewer to leapfrog over ag lands to allow 1,100,000 square feet of industrial uses to be put on this land. This parcel and this parcel and this parcel, this is 1,700 acres, 167 acres, are owned by the same company. It's called Ashley Capital. Look it up. The principal is a gentleman named Rick Morton. He builds massive million and multi-million square foot warehouses. That's what he does. And that's what he's going to do on this property. And there's a limit on how much he can build at Martin Commerce Park of 1,100,000 square feet. There's no limit on ag tech. So this is the northern gateway into Martin County. And that's what people are going to see when they come into Martin County is millions and millions of square feet of warehouses. A couple months ago, the fire department people came to us and said they needed 3 new fire stations. One of them is to serve Newfield, Ag Tech, and Martin Commerce. Another one of them is to replace one in Tropical Farms, which is in an urban neighborhood or suburban neighborhood. And another one is to serve these new things, plus this one, which I haven't told you about yet, Story. It used to be called Harmony, but it's recently been, the name has been changed. There is an application that's winding its way through growth management right now for approximately 4,000 homes, 200,000 square feet of commercial, and a couple million square feet of industrial. So our board approved these developments knowing that they were going to be adding a lot of people to our community. And they didn't make any provisions for paying for those urban services. There's no fire station, there's no police station, there are no schools built. So the fire stations alone cost right now about $20 million a piece. It certainly doesn't include the land, it doesn't include the equipment, and it doesn't include the staff. So each one of those new fire stations is going to cost at least $50 million to build, and we don't have any funding set aside to build those or to staff them. Silver lining. Can we advance to this? This is a map. In Martin County, we own about 70,000 acres is in conservation. And in November, our voters generously and wisely agreed to approve a half-cent sales tax in order to purchase conservation lands. And it will, for over 10 years, it will garner somewhere around $200 million. And in the past, we've said that for every dollar that Martin County invests in those acquisitions of conservation lands, we attract $7 from others. And I don't know that we'll attract $7 for every dollar that we invest, but if we attract 4 times, then we have $1 billion to spend on conservation lands. And our purchase of conservation lands has always been strategic. See these pink lands? Those are lands that are already in conservation. The blue, that's the urban service boundary. If we can make a pink necklace around Martin County, which certainly looks like it might be doable with $1 billion, then we have a better chance of saving these lands for conservation. We have a much better chance of prohibiting additional urban sprawl in Martin County. So I'm very hopeful for that. Brightline. We entered into an agreement with Brightline. We sued to keep Brightline from becoming a reality in Martin County in 2018. And we partnered with CARE, a private company, and our attorneys told us that we were going to lose. So we negotiated a settlement, and the settlement gave us some benefits. And among them were additional protections at all the railroad crossings, additional fencing, and also a train station someplace on the Treasure Coast. Within a year after service began between Miami and Orlando. And Indian River County opted out, so when that time, a year after that service began, we, together with Stewart, entered into a joint proposal with Brightline to have a station in downtown Stewart. And actually, at that time, the city was the real driver of that. They were really enthusiastic about having a train station, and the county was enthusiastic too, but we certainly weren't the driver. And then and we won the bid, and so then there were elections this summer, and the Stewart City Commission ideology changed, and the Stewart City Commission majority no longer wants to partner with Martin County and with Brightline. So the county said, okay, well, we'll see what we can do to go it alone. And we renegotiated another settlement with Brightline, and that settlement says that we, Martin County, will be on the hook for up to $15 million to build the station. And we agreed that we would do everything that we could. We would try to get federal grants, state grants, whatever kind of grants that we could get to cover that $15 million. And I'm pretty confident that we'll be successful too. And we have until June 30th of 2027 to figure out whether or not we can make that a reality. So my feeling is that we have 2.5 years to analyze whether or not this is a good investment for us to make. And the majority Board of County Commissioners is like-minded. We feel like this is a good thing for Martin County. We feel like it would be a wonderful asset for Martin County. And we think that it's a worthy endeavor to try to find other funding to fund our $15 million portion of the cost of the station. And with that, I'll end and ask if there are any questions.
Why doesn't Stewart want the station?
They want Brightline to commit to some dollar amount that they're going to be contributing. That appears to be their only complaint. Yes, ma'am.
Raise your hand and I'll come to you with a microphone. Who's first? All right.
Sir, how do you feel about the Guardians of Martin County?
They're terrific.
I agree. Are they behind, as I can read, they're behind all these efforts to try to tamp down the growth?
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It was very informational. Appreciate you coming. Commercial flight into Stewart Airport,
Never going to happen.
because Breeze is going into Vero now.
Yeah, people here are so sensitive to that topic. You know, it's in the middle of residential neighborhoods, and those people are real sensitive to, you know, to the noise, and yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, hi. I've got two questions for you. One is, I would think with all of these developer activities going on, what sort of offset packages is the county requesting from them? Because surely I would think they would be providing monies for those fire stations, et cetera, and what other sort of damages
We should
you're
be.
expecting.
There are different zoning. You can apply for straight zoning, or you can apply for planned unit development zoning. And if you apply for planned unit development zoning, it gives some flexibility to the county and also to the developers, and it's where you get public benefits. And these projects that I'm talking about are indeed planned unit developments. We just aren't getting enough public benefits. We're just doing a really poor job of negotiating.
It sounds like it. So my follow-up is, what do you expect to happen to sort of Stewart and in the urban area in terms of the impact of this increased density? Because, I mean, my mother moved here, probably 30 years ago, and I have to say, just driving up Federal Highway and back, I mean, the place looks completely different now.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the future?
Well, I have to say that the big driver of that is Port St. Lucie. They added, just last year alone, they added 18,000 new residents. And as far as the development inside the urban core, the city of Stewart is its own government. It has its own comp plan, and they can annex at will. They don't ask our permission. If there's property that they want that's adjacent to city property, they can annex it. And they've been very aggressive about annexing. And their rules aren't the same as ours are. They don't have the same, 15 unit per acre or 25 unit per acre maximums. They don't really have a 4-story height limit. They make their own rules. So Indiantown and the city of Stewart will continue to grow, and their development rules are much, much less strict than ours are. Yes?
Okay. Is one of the advantages of Brightline of a Brightline station that the trains have to slow down through Stewart to get to the station and leave?
No, and one of the parts of the negotiated settlement is that for starters, there will be 8 trains a day stopping here. But no, I don't think that that'll substantially slow the trains down. They have to slow down in downtown Stewart because it's congested, and also because that bridge takes a big curve. So they have to, in order to navigate that bridge safely, they're going to have to slow down. But I've been downtown when those trains go through. They're fast.
Much of the development that you focused on implies that we will have a great need for more workers. Is there any effort in the planning phase for the Board of Commissioners to foster, I'd say, schools, training activities, so that these people can come from this community, be developed even though they are not currently trained, but are trained to work for the employers that we're sort of looking down the nose at?
The short answer is no, but I think that the school board does the best that they can in order to figure out what are great professions to follow in Martin County, and they try to give their students early exposure to those professions. But yeah, we're going to need a whole lot more skilled and unskilled labor.
I'm concerned about 2 issues. For one thing, the Lyric Theater. When a train goes by there, and we're at the Atlantic Classic Orchestra, the conductor laughs because you don't hear part of it. How close to that area is the train station going to be?
I can tell you exactly where it's going to be. It's going to be over by the courthouse. But you know where the
The courthouse.
lumber store is? So south of there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
So pretty far.
and another issue is, we were promised parking facilities long ago, and they put up apartments instead in the area where there was going to be a 4-level parking garage. Where are people going to park with all the increased passengers? I mean, it's a
Well,
real,
that part of the interlocal agreement that we agreed, that we signed with the city, required them to build a parking garage. And that was to accommodate not only Brightline passengers, but also people who were in downtown Stewart, going to the businesses there. And they've walked away from that obligation.
is there anything going on, planning it in the future?
No, not to my knowledge.
That's crazy.
We'll have to provide parking if we get the station, approval for the station. We definitely will provide, yeah,
You have to go hours ahead.
yeah.
I'm concerned about road congestion. I remember being on the west coast of Florida around Captiva years ago, and they had so many condos and whatnot, and every condo had 2 cars, and you'd get on the road to go 4 blocks, and it'd be 4 hours, it seemed like. Have we made plans for roads for some of that?
We used to have a Department of Community Affairs that, and we used to have legislation that allowed us to force developers to pay for concurrency on roads. They had to pay their fair share when a road became was failing. Then they had to provide money or additional capacity to stand that burden. And the legislature took away our ability to do that. So we haven't had that ability to task developers developing new property for a while.
You mentioned all these mega high-end developments, and then you said you need a need for 3 more fire stations, and you don't know where to get the money. Well, mega developers want approval. If they want approval, they have to build the fire stations. So that's the source of the money.
I didn't vote for any of those projects. If I had, I would have demanded that they provide for those essential urban services. And that wasn't demanded of them. Of course they would have, if they want approval, that's one of the conditions of approval. But that wasn't a demand that was made.
Driving north on 95 before you get to Bridge Road is Becker Nurseries, I believe. And I had heard or seen that they were in collaboration with a high-end builder also to develop part of that property.
No, that was part of the rural lifestyle. In order to get more density on their project, they added, one of the conditions of their approval was that that property, which is 800 acres, would be put in a perpetual ag easement. So it has been put in a perpetual ag easement, and it will forever be undeveloped. They've stripped away their development potential from that lot, and it will always be either vacant or some sort of agricultural production.
One question over here.
Just to follow up on the road congestion, there's a considerable amount of construction along both Cove Road and also along Bridge, in addition to south of us on 1. And there are a lot of these apartments going up, but the roads are nowhere near, with the school over there and the churches and whatnot. They're 2-lane roads. I mean, there's just no way.
There's not anybody in this room who's going to disagree with you. I couldn't agree with you more, but we don't have the ability to require that the new development create new capacity on the roads any longer. So we're approving development without having adequate capacity on the roads. Yes.
I've been a full-time resident almost 20 years now, and yet I feel a little uninformed because I used to read the local newspaper, which 10 to 20 years ago had a lot of information in it. But I think it's useful for the folks here to understand the underlying basics of how we became trying to conserve our open space county and why. My way of looking at it is, in a way, you're a disciple of Nate Reed, whose family owned Jupiter Island and was Assistant Secretary of the Interior when we had the Clean Water and Clean Air Acts. But the important thing now is the county commission, which you kind of glossed over from 20 to 24, must have been a bunch of people that weren't interested in that way of looking at growth. They were looking at, let's, kind of like in the US government, we have had the switches every 4 years from Democrat to Republican, and that entirely changes the mindset. So what's going on? What got elected in the fall? It seems to me it's always been 3-2 in one direction or the other, and what's the storyline here?
We've never allowed urban development in Western lands. Never. That was a bridge that we were not willing to cross, and that changed. That changed dramatically within the last 5 years. Because of new commissioners.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, I think that one of the things that's caused Martin County to be such an environmental county is the absolute disaster that the C-44 canal is. That's destroyed our estuary, and people are very sensitive about that, as well they should be. And another thing that's made Martin County very different is we have Jupiter Island. That's 500 homes that historically, in the past, paid about somewhere between 11 and 13% of our ad valorem taxes and don't demand any services whatsoever. So that's why, it's one of the reasons why we're a wealthy county, why we've been able to be more protective, more conservative, more concerned with our natural resources than others are, because we had that luxury, you know, of having a huge donor base that required no services.
What's going to happen?
I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know.
Steve? Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah, two questions. What are the prospects for widening Bridge Road from Federal Highway out to Canada Highway?
It's not on the horizon. It's not.
And my other is a skeptical question. Has Tallahassee been bought?
Well,
By the bill.
tough. You know, Tallahassee's a tough place. You know, it's always, it seems to me, been controlled by special interests, whether it's development, you know, construction, insurance, sugar. You know, there are so many special interests that control the votes in Tallahassee, but I think it's always been that way.
But you're talking about stuff that was approved on a local level. It had nothing
Yeah,
to do with
yeah.
Tallahassee. So I don't know what's relevant to what he's doing versus the people in Martin County, let all this happen on Bridge Road, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with Tallahassee.
Tallahassee certainly has trickle-down impacts here. They take away some of our home rule every opportunity that they get, but we still have home rule. We still are masters of our own destiny somewhat.
Sarah, I have one question, and then we'll wrap it up. But basically, does the county get involved in erosion control on the coastline, and what plans are there for that?
We do. We have a very active role in controlling erosion and also in controlling dredging in the inlet. We also do beach renourishment regularly. You know, our community is coastal, and that's why so many people are here. It's one of the luxuries that we all enjoy, and therefore we think it's important to maintain robust investments in the coast, in our beaches. But as you can imagine, those projects are just ridiculously expensive. So we rely upon the state through the Department of Environmental Protection and the Army Corps of Engineers to help us with those. We generally try to get those agencies to pay for 75% of the projects, and we cough up 25%.
I want to thank Sarah, of course, for her time. I know she and I have worked, and she put a lot of time into this on top of her normal work, but on behalf of Mariner Sands and the chapel here, thank you for your time and
Thank you very much.
I have one other message, which is really, this is in 3 weeks, we'll have our last of 5 speaker series for this season. And that will be a worldwide initiative on endangered wildlife, which is going to be presented by Deborah McCauley, whose mother is a neighbor of ours here, Dee Way, which many of you may know. But this program, the focus of that program will be based on the endangered species in Africa, Asia, and here in the US, and you're talking about big game. You're talking about elephants, tigers, lions, wolves, basically in Asia, Africa, and of course here in the United States. So save the date. That'll be April 1st. It's Tuesday. It's 3 weeks away. And Deborah is the founder of this worldwide organization called the VIEW, Veterinaries Initiative for Endangered Wildlife. So we look forward to seeing you in 3 weeks. We also want to put a commercial in for a program next Tuesday, which is a concert series. Bob Steyer puts that on, and there's an organization here that will be actually 6-7 piece band here, but it'll be next Tuesday. So we look forward to seeing you here in a week and 2 weeks later.
Yeah, we're going to have a jazz band here on the 18th, so you're welcome to come out and they're going to have a concert, but then they're also going to hang around a little afterwards and just jam. So if you have an electric guitar or a drum set or bass, and you want to come and jam with us, feel free to do that. Thank you all for coming tonight. God bless you. Take care.